I never imagined I'd be the woman who'd burst into a boardroom full of billionaires, holding evidence that could destroy everything. But there I was, 3 months pregnant with desperation, and 27 minutes late to the most important vote in Harrison Technologies' history. The mahogany doors felt heavier than my entire trailer back in Millbrook. Through the glass panel, I could see them 12 board members in tailored suits, ready to shut down the company. 3,000 jobs, hanging by a thread thinner than the ice I'd walked across to get here. Robert Harrison sat at the head of the table, jaw clenched, watching his empire crumble. The same man who'd answered my wrong number text at midnight. The same man who'd saved my son's life with $50 I never meant to ask him for. My hand shook against the folder. Inside proof that would either save everyone or condemn me as the fool who'd trusted a stranger's kindness. It all started 89 days ago, on the coldest night Iowa had seen in 30 years. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching. From now, let's continue with the story. December 15th, 2019. Millbrook, Iowa. Population 3,000, give or take whoever'd left for somewhere warmer, somewhere with hope, still intact. I was 28 years old, and I'd learned that poverty has a smell. It's the scent of propane you can't afford to refill mixed with the metallic tang of fear. It's knowing your hands shake not from the cold, but from counting the same $3.47 for the 5th time, praying the math would somehow change. My son Tommy, 18 months old, all blonde curls and trust, didn't understand why Mama kept the lights off. I told him we were camping. Indoor camping, I'd said brightly, like women do when they're lying to the person they love most. The trailer park manager had been kind enough to wait 3 days past the eviction notice. In Millbrook, people understood hard times. We'd all watched the grain elevator close. We'd all seen the factory jobs disappear like morning frost. I'd been a teacher once. I'd been a second grade, Lincoln Elementary, 22 bright faces every morning, and I'd loved every single one. But budget cuts don't care about love. And single mothers without family money don't get to choose between childcare and keeping their jobs. I'd chosen Tommy. I'd choose him every time. My mother died the day he was born. Hemorrhaged out before the ambulance could navigate the snow-blocked roads from Des Moines. The hospital was 40 minutes away, might as well have been 40 miles. Rural America's like that. Everything important is just out of reach. Tommy's father, Kyle, had left the moment he'd heard, couldn't handle a dead mother-in-law and a screaming newborn in the same week. I'd found his note on the kitchen table. I'm sorry. I'm not strong enough for this. At least he'd been honest. That night, the night that changed everything, Tommy's cough had gotten worse. The kind of cough that rattles in tiny ribs, that makes you count breaths like prayers. The formula can sat empty on the counter. I'd been stretching it with water for 3 days, telling myself it was fine. Babies are resilient. We'd make it to Friday's paycheck. But Friday was 3 days away, and Tommy was hungry now. I sat on the kitchen floor, the same cracked linoleum my mother had mopped 1,000 times, and opened my diary. I'd been keeping it for Tommy since the day he was born. Someday, I wanted him to know his grandmother, wanted him to know where he came from. That night, I wrote something I never wanted him to read. The diary entry started like all the others. Dear Tommy, today you turned 18 months old, but my pen had hovered over the next line for 20 minutes, and what came out wasn't meant for a child's eyes. I looked up adoption agencies tonight. I typed, "can't afford my baby," into Google. God forgive me. The words blurred as tears hit the page. I'd been holding them back for so long that when they finally came, they felt like breaking glass. My mother used to say crying was weakness leaving the body. But I didn't feel stronger. I felt like I was drowning in a frozen lake, watching my own hand slip under the surface. Tommy coughed again from the bedroom, that wet, rattling sound that no mother should ever have to hear alone at midnight. I set down the pen and went to him, running my hand across his forehead. Warm. Not dangerously so, but warm enough to add to the weight crushing my chest. "Mama's here, baby," I whispered, lifting him against my shoulder. He nuzzled into my neck, trusting completely. That's what killed me most, his absolute faith that I'd take care of him. What happens when that faith is misplaced? I carried him back to the kitchen, wrapping us both in the threadbare blanket my mother had crocheted when I was pregnant. Every stitch was a prayer, she'd said. I wondered if God counted prayers from dead women. My phone sat on the counter, cracked screen, held together with electrical tape. But it worked. I'd kept the service active by letting everything else go. A phone meant I could find work. A phone meant emergency calls if Tommy got really sick. A phone meant I wasn't completely cut off from the world, even if the world had mostly forgotten about people like us. I pulled up my contacts. Ben, my older brother. He'd helped 3 times already, once for diapers, once for the electric bill, once for Tommy's doctor visit. Each time, his texts had gotten shorter, less warm. Yes. The last one had been just Claire. "I can't keep doing this." I understood. Ben had his own family, his own bills, his own life in Kansas City, where people still had jobs that paid enough to live on. I'd promised myself I wouldn't ask again, had sworn it on my mother's grave. But that was before I'd started watering down formula, before I'd started choosing between eating and heating, before Tommy's cough had started sounding like my mother's breathing in those final hours. My hands shook as I typed. Not from the cold this time. The cold had been there so long I barely felt it anymore. They shook from shame, from the kind of humiliation that comes from realizing you've become the person you swore you'd never be. "Ben, I'm so sorry to ask again. Tommy needs formula and I get paid Friday. Just $50. Please." My thumb hovered over the send button. This was it. This was the moment I officially became the burden everyone had warned him about. The sister who couldn't get her life together. The single mother who should have made better choices. I hit send. The message went through with that soft whoosh sound. Final, irreversible. I set the phone down and stared at it, waiting for the typing bubbles that might never come. Or worse, the bubbles followed by words that would confirm what I already knew: I was on my own. I'd always been on my own. Tommy shifted in my arms, making that small sound babies make when they're dreaming. I kissed the top of his head, breathing in that baby smell that somehow survived even poverty, even desperation. "I'm trying, baby," I whispered. "I promise. I'm trying." The phone buzzed. My heart jumped, a painful, desperate leap that made me hate myself a little more. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped Tommy. but the message on the screen wasn't from Ben. "I think you have the wrong number, but is your baby okay?" I stared at those words, read them twice, 3 times. The area code was Chicago 847. I'd never known anyone in Chicago. Must have typed a digit wrong. Hands too numb from cold, thumb slipping on the cracked screen. Horror washed over me in waves. A stranger. I'd sent my most humiliating moment to a complete stranger. Someone who now knew I couldn't even afford to feed my child. Someone who'd probably screenshot it and share it online. Another story about irresponsible single mothers for people to judge over their morning coffee. "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore." I locked the screen and set the phone face down, as if not seeing it could somehow undo what I'd done. My face burned despite the cold. I'd reached a new low, and in a life full of lows. That was saying something. Tommy coughed again. I rubbed his back, humming the lullaby my mother used to sing. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Except there was no mockingbird, no diamond ring, just a broken woman and a hungry child in a trailer that smelled like failure. The phone buzzed again. I almost didn't look, almost threw it across the room. But something, maybe the same stupid hope that keeps people buying lottery tickets, made me flip it over. "Is your baby okay?" 3 hours away in Chicago, in a penthouse that overlooked half the city, Robert Harrison stared at his phone screen with hands that hadn't stopped shaking since he'd read that first message. Rob hadn't meant to be in the nursery that night. He never meant to be there. Hadn't entered the room in 3 years, except to dust it once a month, a ritual of self-punishment he couldn't seem to break. But it was December 15th, the anniversary, and the anniversary had a gravity that pulled him to the places that hurt most. The room was exactly as Sarah had left it. Crib assembled but never used, mobile hanging overhead, pastel elephants frozen mid-dance, the rocking chair where she'd planned to nurse their daughter. Even the name Emma Grace Harrison was still written on the chalkboard above the changing table in Sarah's careful handwriting. He'd been sitting in that rocking chair for 2 hours, holding a bottle of pills in one hand and his phone in the other. The pills were prescribed, legal, 30 days' worth of sleep aids he'd never taken because sleep meant dreams, and dreams meant waking up to remember all over again that Sarah was gone. The phone number on his screen was for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. He'd Googled it at 11:15 p.m., had stared at it for 43 minutes. His thumb had hovered over the call button 16 times. He wasn't going to call. He knew that. Whatever happened tonight would happen in silence, the way everything important in his life seemed to happen now. Alone in rooms full of things meant for other people. Better people. People who didn't let their wives die while they were negotiating deals in Singapore. That's when her text came through. The phone was Sarah's old number. He'd kept it active after she died. Transferred it to his account. Paid the bill every month for 3 years even though no one ever called it. She'd made him promise before the surgery, before they'd lost both her and Emma in the space of 2 hours, that he'd use the number to help someone someday. "Promise me, Rob, all this money we've made, all this success, it has to mean something. When I'm gone, you use this number to help someone who needs it, someone who's desperate. Promise me." He'd promised. He'd held her hand and promised everything she'd asked, because you don't deny dying women their final wishes. But for 3 years, the phone had stayed silent. a shrine to good intentions and gutless follow-through. Until tonight. Ben, I'm so sorry to ask again. Tommy needs formula and I get paid Friday. Just $50. Please. Rob read the message 3 times. The desperation in those words was familiar. He'd felt it in the hospital when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do, when they'd asked him to choose between Sarah and the baby. And he'd chosen Sarah, and lost them both anyway. This woman, whoever she was asking for $50 to feed her child. $50. The amount he spent on a single lunch. The amount that sat forgotten in his wallet while people counted coins to keep their children alive. I think you have the wrong number, but is your baby okay? He typed it before he could overthink it, before the voice that sounded like his board of directors could remind him about liability and stranger danger, and the 1,000 reasons successful men didn't engage with desperate women at midnight. The response came quickly. An apology. Please, ignore. As if shame could be deleted like a text message. As if pretending it hadn't happened would somehow undo the fact that somewhere, right now, a baby was crying from hunger. Rob stood up. The pills clattered to the floor. Forgotten. He walked to the window, phone gripped in his hand, and looked out at Chicago spread below him like a circuit board. Millions of lights, millions of lives. And somewhere in that vast darkness, a woman was alone with a hungry child, too proud to accept help even from strangers. He typed, "Is your baby okay?" in Millbrook. I stared at that question like it was written in a language I didn't understand. Why would a stranger care? Why would anyone care? My fingers moved without permission from my brain. We'll manage. Thank you for asking. I can help. No strings attached. I actually laughed. A broken sound that startled Tommy awake. No strings attached. That's what they all said. Men with money and women with none, there were always strings. They just didn't tell you about them until you were already tangled up. I don't take money from strangers, I typed, then added, because honesty seemed less risky than hope. But thank you. Then I'm not a stranger. I'm Robert. Rob. And you are. I hesitated. Giving him my name felt like stepping off a cliff. But I was already falling. Wasn't I? Had been falling since my mother died, since Kyle left, since the school board told me they were restructuring, and my position was no longer necessary. Claire. Nice to meet you. What's your son's name? Tommy. He's 18 months. Tommy's a good name. Strong. This was surreal. I was having a conversation with a stranger at midnight about my son's name while Tommy dozed against my chest, his small body trusting me completely despite all evidence that I had no idea what I was doing. Claire, I'm going to send you something. It's not charity. Think of it as paying forward kindness I once received. Someone helped me when I needed it. Let me help you. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a Venmo notification. I almost dropped it. $5,000 I was received from Robert Harrison. I stopped breathing. Actually stopped. Tommy shifted, concerned by the sudden stillness of the body he was sleeping against. $5,000. The number didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. I checked again, convinced I'd misread, that it was $50, that my exhausted brain had invented extra zeros. No, $5,000. This is too much, I typed with shaking hands. I only needed 50. It's already yours. No catch. One less thing to worry about. I don't remember starting to cry. Don't remember the exact moment my face went wet or when the sobs began to shake my shoulders. But suddenly, Tommy was awake again, patting my cheek with his small hand. Confused by these tears that were so different from the quiet crying he'd grown used to. These weren't tears of desperation. They were tears of something I'd almost forgotten existed. Relief. Pure, overwhelming, terrifying relief. Thank you, I typed, then deleted it. Typed it again. The words felt too small. How do you thank someone for throwing you a rope when you're drowning? How do you explain that they didn't just help you? They proved that help exists at all. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of Tommy. I stared at that message. I'd never mentioned Tommy's name in my original text. Had I scrolled back up, checking. No. I'd just said, baby. How did you know his name? I typed, then immediately felt stupid. I'd just told him. 2 messages ago, the exhaustion was making me paranoid, or maybe I was still in shock. $5,000. I pulled up my bank app, convinced it wouldn't be there, that this was some kind of hallucination brought on by hunger and despair. But the transfer was real. Pending, but real. By morning, it would clear. By morning, I could buy formula and diapers and pay the electric bill and maybe, just maybe, sleep without counting breaths and dollars and days until the next disaster. Thank you, I typed again, because there was nothing else to say, nothing adequate, nothing that could possibly convey what this stranger had just done. 3 hours away. Rob set his phone down and looked at the pills scattered across the nursery floor. Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. Use this number to help someone who needs it. He'd kept his promise, finally. And for the first time in 3 years, the room didn't feel quite so much like a tomb. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd jolt awake convinced I'd dreamed the whole thing. At 3 a.m., I checked my bank account for the 7th time. The money was still there. Real, solid, impossible. When dawn finally broke over Millbrook, that weak winter light that makes everything look worse somehow, I bundled Tommy into his carrier and walked the 2 miles to Dollar General. The snow crunched under my boots. The same boots with the sole that flapped loose. I'd meant to fix it with duct tape but kept forgetting. Or maybe I'd stopped caring about things like that. The formula aisle made me cry again. Stupid. Standing there in my threadbare coat, staring at rows of cans I could actually afford. I bought 6, then diapers. Then baby food, the good kind. Organic, the kind I'd always walked past. I bought Tommy a winter coat that actually fit. Bought myself nothing because old habits die hard. At the register, Mrs. Patterson, who'd taught my mother in Sunday school 40 years ago, rang up my items with the kind of careful silence small towns do when they know your business and choose kindness over questions. That'll be $247.83, she said softly. I handed her my debit card, hand steady now. When the payment went through, when the receipt printed and proved this was all real. Mrs. Patterson reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. "Don't know what changed for you, Claire, but I'm glad something did." I wanted to explain. Wanted to tell her about the wrong number and the stranger and the miracle that happened at midnight. But how do you explain something you don't understand yourself? Back at the trailer, I made Tommy a proper bottle. Full formula. No water stretching. He drank it like he'd been waiting his whole life for someone to stop being stingy. Then he fell asleep in my arms, milk drunk, and finally, satisfied, that's when I let myself look at my phone again. 3 new messages from Robert Harrison. Rob. The first, "I hope you got some rest." The second, "I took the liberty of ordering some supplies. Should arrive this afternoon." The third, "And Claire, this isn't a one-time thing. If you need help again, you reach out. That's not charity. That's just what people should do for each other." I stared at those words until they blurred. People should help each other. Such a simple concept. But, in my experience, people mostly help themselves. "Why are you doing this?" I typed, then deleted it. Typed it again, sent it before I could overthink. His response came quickly. "Because once upon a time, someone saved my life when they didn't have to, and I never forgot it." "Who?" A long pause. I watched the typing bubbles appear and disappear 3 times before his message finally came through. "My wife. She's gone now. But she made me promise I'd help someone when they needed it most. I've been waiting 3 years to keep that promise." Something in my chest cracked open. Not pity. I couldn't afford to pity people who had loved and lost when I was too busy trying to survive. But recognition. This man understood something about darkness that most people just theorized about from safety. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you. What about Tommy's father?" The question should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like someone finally asking the right question. "He left the day my mother died. Couldn't handle both losses at once. That must have been impossible." "It was. It is. But you're still here." Such a simple observation, but it hit different than the usual platitudes. Yes, I was still here. Despite everything trying to pull me under, I was still standing. Barely. But standing. At 2 p.m., a delivery truck pulled up to the trailer. The driver unloaded 4 massive boxes. I signed for them in a daze, then carried them inside one by one, my back aching but not caring. Inside formula, months' worth. Diapers in every size Tommy would need for the next year, baby clothes, good ones, with the tags still on, organic food pouches, toys, a winter coat for me in exactly my size. How did he know my size at the bottom of the last box? An envelope. Inside, a handwritten note on thick cream cardstock. The kind rich people use. Claire. No child should go without. No mother should have to choose between pride and feeding her son. These are things Tommy needs. Let me help. But I have a proposition. My company needs someone with your attention to detail. Someone who knows what it's like to count every penny. Come to Chicago. Bring Tommy. Let's talk about a job, not charity. A real position. If you're interested, my assistant Maggie will call you tomorrow to arrange travel. Rob. At the bottom, a phone number, a Chicago area code. I read the note 5 times. A job. He was offering me a job. Not a handout, not pity disguised as generosity, an actual opportunity. The old Claire, the one who'd taught second grade and believed in systems and doing things the right way, would have been suspicious. Would have seen strings where Rob claimed there were none. But that Claire had died somewhere between the eviction notice and watering down formula. The woman I was now understood something that naive teacher never had. Sometimes the only way out is through the kindness of strangers. Sometimes you have to trust the rope someone throws you, even if you can't see where it's anchored. I picked up my phone. I'll come to Chicago, but I need to know, is this real, the job? Or are you just trying to make me feel better about accepting help? His response, the job is real. You'll earn every penny. I need someone who sees what others miss. Someone who understands the value of a dollar because they've had to stretch it to breaking. That's you. Claire, what if I'm not good enough? Then you walk away. No strings. You keep what I've given you. But I don't think you will. I've learned to recognize fighters. You're one. I looked at Tommy, sleeping in his new coat because I hadn't bothered to take it off him. He looked warm for the first time in months. Fed, safe, all because I'd texted a wrong number. Or maybe it wasn't wrong at all. When? I typed. Friday. Maggie will arrange everything. Bring Tommy. There's a nursery at the office. A nursery? At an office? The concept was so foreign I almost laughed. In Millbrook. You left your kids with neighbors or relatives. You didn't bring babies to work unless you were desperate. But Chicago wasn't Millbrook. And Robert Harrison wasn't anyone I'd ever met before. That night, I wrote in Tommy's diary. Dear Tommy, 3 days ago, I almost gave up. Tonight, I'm packing our things for Chicago. Your grandmother used to say God works in mysterious ways. I never believed her couldn't afford to believe in anything I couldn't see or touch or count. But maybe she was right. Maybe the universe has plans we can't see until we're living them. A stranger answered my call for help. Now he's offering me something harder than money. He's offering me a chance to prove myself, to stand on my own feet again, to show you that your mama is more than her worst moments. I don't know what happens next, but for the first time in 18 months, I'm not afraid to find out. Love always, Mama. Friday morning. Maggie Chen called at exactly 9 a.m. Her voice was professional but warm, the kind of warmth that comes from people who've learned to be kind without being condescending. Ms. Whitmore, I'm calling from Harrison Technologies. Mr. Harrison wanted me to arrange your travel to Chicago. We have you booked on the 2 p.m. bus. Bus is fine, I interrupted. I appreciate. Actually, Mr. Harrison arranged for a car service. They'll pick you up at noon. The drive is about 4 hours. We've booked you a hotel room for tonight, and tomorrow morning you'll meet with Mr. Harrison to discuss the position. A car service? A hotel? This was really happening. Miss Chen, Maggie, I need to ask, Is this normal, how he's helping me? A pause. Then, no. Ms. Whitmore. It's not normal. Mr. Harrison doesn't typically. She stopped, choosing words carefully. He's very private. What he's doing for you is personal, but I've worked for him for 6 years, and I've never seen him do anything without good reason. If he believes in you, you should believe in yourself." The car arrived at 11:45 a.m., a black sedan, clean and warm, driven by a quiet man who helped me load our things without comment on the garbage bags I'd used as luggage. As we pulled away from the trailer park, I looked back at the rusted metal box that had been my prison and my refuge. Mrs. Patterson was outside her unit, watching. She waved. I waved back. Tommy pointed at the window. "Bye-bye." "Yes, baby. Bye-bye." I didn't know if we'd ever come back. Didn't know if Chicago would be our salvation or just another disappointment in a long line of them. But I knew this. I was done waiting for life to happen to me. Whatever Robert Harrison was offering, I was brave enough or desperate enough to find out if it was real. Harrison Technologies occupied floors 37 through 42 of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the winter sky. I'd never been inside a building that tall, never felt the stomach drop of an elevator moving that fast. Tommy laughed at the sensation, delighted by what terrified me. The reception area was all clean lines and muted colors, the kind of deliberate simplicity that costs more than most people's yearly salary. A woman about my age sat behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of walnut. Her name tag read Jessica. She looked up as we approached, and I watched her expression do that quick flicker people do when they're trying to figure out if you belong somewhere. Her smile landed somewhere between professional and pitying. "Can I help you?" "I'm Claire Whitmore. I have an appointment with Mr. Harrison." Her eyebrows rose just slightly. "Of course. Let me call up." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then hung up. "Ms. Chen will be right down." We waited in leather chairs that probably cost more than my car had. Tommy squirmed in my lap, fascinated by the floor-to-ceiling windows that showed Chicago spread out like a promise or a threat. I couldn't decide which. The elevator dinged. A woman stepped out, Chinese-American, maybe mid-40s, dressed in a way that made power look effortless. Her handshake was firm without trying to prove anything. "Claire, I'm Maggie Chen. Welcome to Harrison Technologies." She smiled at Tommy. "And you must be Tommy. We're so glad you're here." She spoke to him like he was a person, not an accessory. I liked her immediately. "Mr. Harrison is finishing a call, but he asked me to show you around first." "Including the nursery." "The what?" Maggie's smile widened. "Follow me." The 37th floor was a maze of glass offices and open workspaces. People looked up as we passed, their gazes lingering on Tommy, on my discount store clothes, on the obvious fact that I didn't belong here. I held my head up anyway. Pride was sometimes all I had left. Maggie stopped at a door near the end of the hall. "This," she said, pushing it open, "is for Tommy and any other employee children who need it." I stepped inside and my throat closed. It was a full nursery, crib in the corner, changing tables stocked with diapers and wipes, soft rugs, a rocking chair by the window, toys, good ones, wooden and bright and safe, even blackout curtains for naps. "This isn't—" I started, then stopped. "This is too much." Maggie's expression shifted to something softer. "Miss Whitmore, Claire, Mr. Harrison built this room 3 years ago for his daughter. She never got to use it. When he told me about you and Tommy, he asked if we could prepare it. He said it shouldn't just sit empty anymore, that someone should get to use it. The pieces clicked into place. The late wife, the daughter who never was. This room was a monument to loss, and Rob was letting my son play in it. I don't understand, I whispered. You don't have to, Maggie said gently. Just let him help. It helps him too. Tommy reached for a stuffed elephant hanging from a mobile. Maggie lifted him up so he could grab it. He squealed, delighted, and I had to look away before the tears came. He's ready for you now, Maggie said. I'll watch Tommy if you'd like. I hesitated. I'd never left Tommy with a stranger before, never had reason to. But Maggie's face was open and kind, and Tommy already seemed comfortable with her. Okay, I raised 3 boys, Maggie said. He's in good hands. The walk to Rob's office felt like walking to an execution. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept wiping them on my jeans, but the sweat just came back. Maggie knocked once, then opened the door. Mr. Harrison, Claire Whitmore is here. She stepped aside, and I walked into a room that was somehow exactly what I expected and nothing like it at all. The office was huge but sparse. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city, a desk that looked barely used, 2 chairs across from it, leather but worn, and standing by the window, back to me, a man in a shirt with rolled sleeves. He turned. Robert Harrison was not what I'd imagined. I'd pictured someone older, harder, the kind of man who'd made billions by stepping on people. But the man looking at me was maybe 40, with tired eyes and the kind of face that suggested he smiled once but had forgotten how. Claire. He crossed the room, hand extended. Thank you for coming. His handshake was warm, steady, real. Thank you for everything. The money, the supplies, this. I gestured around. I don't understand why you're doing this, but I'm grateful. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs. Please. We sat. He didn't go back to his desk, just took the chair next to mine, like we were equals having a conversation instead of a billionaire interviewing a broke single mother. I'll be honest with you, he said. I don't typically do this, any of this. But your text came at a moment when I needed to remember what it feels like to help someone. The anniversary, I said quietly, of your wife. His jaw tightened. Maggie told you. Just that she passed. And your daughter. I'm so sorry. Thank you. He was quiet for a moment. Sarah, my wife, made me promise before she died that I'd use her phone number to help someone desperate, someone who needed kindness. I kept that number active for 3 years, paid the bill every month, but I never used it until your text came through. Understanding hit like cold water. That was her number, the one I texted. Yes? Then it wasn't a wrong number at all. No, Rob said softly. I don't think it was. We sat in silence. Outside, Chicago hummed with life, millions of people going about their days, unaware that in this office, two strangers were trying to make sense of something that felt like fate or chance or maybe just the universe's strange sense of humor. "You said you had a job," I finally said. "Is that real? Or were you just trying to make me feel better about accepting help?" "It's real." He pulled a folder from his desk, handed it to me. "Junior financial analyst. You'd be reviewing transaction reports, flagging inconsistencies, helping our audit team track expenditures. It's detail work, tedious, but important." I opened the folder. The salary listed made my vision blur. $65,000 a year. More than I'd made as a teacher. More than I'd dreamed of making. "I don't have a college degree," I said. "I went to community college but dropped out when my mom got sick. I'm not qualified for this." "You counted pennies to keep your son alive. You stretched $50 until it screamed."
You know the value of money in a way most of my employees never will. He leaned forward. "Claire, I need someone who sees what others miss. Someone who understands that every dollar represents a choice, a sacrifice, a life. That's you." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and you walk away with severance." "But I don't think you will." His eyes held mine. "I've learned to recognize fighters. You're one." I thought about the nights counting coins, the days stretching food, the months of holding on when letting go would have been easier. "Okay," I said. "I'll try." Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. "Good. You start Monday. Maggie will handle paperwork and get you set up. We'll help you find an apartment." "I'll find my own apartment," I interrupted. "I appreciate everything, but I need to do some things myself, or I'll start feeling like charity again." This time, he definitely smiled. "Fair enough, but the salary includes relocation assistance. It's standard for all new hires, not special treatment." "Okay, that's okay." He stood, extended his hand again. "Welcome to Harrison Technologies. Claire." I shook it. And for the first time in 18 months, I felt something dangerous and unfamiliar stirring in my chest. Hope. The first week was harder than I'd expected. Not the work I understood numbers, could spot patterns in spreadsheets that others missed. It was everything else. The way people looked at me in the elevator, the whispers that followed me down hallways, the receptionist, Jessica's carefully neutral face whenever I passed her desk with Tommy. On my third day, I overheard two women in the break room. "Did you see her? The one with the baby. Rob's charity case. Apparently he found her on some poverty website or something. Must be nice. Text a billionaire. Get a 6-figure job." I'd stood frozen outside the door. Tommy heavy in my arms, my face burning. Part of me wanted to burst in and explain about the wrong number, about earning my position, about how I counted every transaction like my life depended on it because once it had, but I didn't. I walked away. Let them think what they wanted. Gossip was cheaper than the truth anyway. Rob found me at my desk that afternoon, staring at expense reports without really seeing them. "How's the first week treating you?" he asked. "Fine." The lie tasted metallic. He pulled up a chair, sat down at eye level. "Claire, they think I'm here because you feel sorry for me. Some of them, yes. His honesty startled me. "Does that bother you? Does it bother you?" "I don't know." I set down my pen. "I want to earn this, but it's hard to prove yourself when people have already decided you're a charity case." "Then prove them wrong." He leaned back. "You've been here 3 days, and you've already flagged 6 reporting errors my team missed. That vendor payment you questioned yesterday turned out to be a duplicate charge. You just saved the company $12,000. That's not charity. That's competence. You're just saying that I don't just say things. Claire, I'm a lot of things, but dishonest isn't one of them." He stood. "Keep doing what you're doing. The people who matter will notice." That night, I stayed late, not because Rob asked, but because I couldn't let myself be the woman they thought I was. I pulled up the quarterly expense reports, cross-referencing vendor payments against project budgets. That's when I saw it. A small inconsistency. A company called Trinox Solutions, LLC. 4 payments over 6 months, each under $5,000 below the threshold that would trigger automatic review. The amounts varied slightly each time: $3,847, $4,293, $3,621, $4,508. The company name didn't match any active project. When I searched our vendor database, Trinox had minimal information. Just a Delaware LLC and a P.O. box address. I flagged it. Sent a note to Rob. "Found something odd. Can we discuss tomorrow?" His response came at 11:47 p.m. "My office, 9 a.m. I should have gone home. Should have picked up Tommy from the nursery where he'd fallen asleep under Maggie's watch. But something about those numbers nagged at me. The amounts weren't random. They were carefully calculated to stay invisible. I dove deeper. Found more payments. Same pattern. Same vendor. Dating back 18 months. Always just under the audit threshold. Always approved by the same department, finance. By 2 a.m. I'd documented 27 payments totaling $89,000. Small amounts individually. But together, someone was siphoning money from Harrison Technologies systematically, deliberately, and very, very carefully. I encrypted the file, saved it to a private folder, and finally went to get Tommy. Maggie was still there, reading in the rocking chair, while my son slept in the crib. "You didn't have to stay," I whispered. "I wanted to." She smiled. "He's a good sleeper. You're lucky. Thank you. For everything. For not judging me." Maggie's expression shifted. "Claire, I came to this country with 3 boys and $200. My husband had died, and I spoke maybe 50 words of English. Mr. Harrison's father gave me a job, not out of pity, because I worked harder than anyone else. When people whispered about me, I let my work answer. Did it answer? Eventually. The whispers never completely stop, but they matter less when you know your worth." She stood, touched my shoulder. "You'll find yours. You already have. You just don't see it yet." The next morning, I walked into Rob's office with my laptop and a printed report. He was on the phone, but gestured for me to wait. I studied the room while he finished his call. Photos on the credenza, all of the same woman. Dark hair, bright smile, the kind of face that suggested she laughed easily. Sarah. That was her favorite picture, Rob said, hanging up. Taken 3 weeks before diagnosis. Sometimes I think that's worse, knowing how happy we were right before everything fell apart. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stare. It's fine. I keep them there to remember what I'm working for. Or what I was working for. He shook his head. You said you found something. I opened my laptop, showed him the spreadsheet, watched his expression shift from curious to focused to concerned. How far back does this go? 18 months that I can confirm. Could be longer if they started smaller. And it's all the same vendor. Yes, Trinox Solutions. Payments approved through finance. Specifically, I pulled up the approval logs. Approved by David Sterling. Rob's jaw tightened. My CFO. I don't know if it's intentional or if someone's using his credentials, but every payment routes through his authorization. How much total? So far, $89,000. But if this pattern continues, and if it started before my data access begins, I met his eyes. Could be significantly more. Rob stood, walked to the window. Chicago stretched below us, indifferent to our small office drama. David's been with me 2 years. Came highly recommended, restructured our entire finance division. Maybe that's why, I said quietly. Best place to hide is in plain sight. Make changes. Create new processes. Bury the fraud in the complexity. You sound like you've thought about this before. My throat tightened. When I was 16, I hacked my stepfather's bank account. Stole $12,000 to pay for my mother's cancer treatment. Insurance had denied her claim. I got caught. They let me off because I was a minor and returned the money. But I learned how people hide financial crimes. It's never about being clever. It's about being patient. Rob turned, studying me with those tired, knowing eyes. You never mentioned that in your interview. Would you have hired me if I had? Probably not. He almost smiled. Good thing you didn't tell me. What do we do about David? We verify, carefully. If we're wrong, we destroy an innocent man's career. If we're right and we tip him off, evidence disappears. He sat back down. Can you dig deeper without raising flags? I think so. Give me a few days. You have 72 hours. This stays between us. Not Maggie. Not anyone. Understand? Yes. Claire. He waited until I looked at him. If this is what it looks like, and if David's involved, this gets dangerous. He's not going to let some junior analyst destroy his operation. You need to be careful. I've been poor, Mr. Harrison. I've counted pennies while my son cried from hunger. Whatever David Sterling is, he doesn't scare me more than that. But I was wrong. By the end of the week, I'd realized David Sterling should have terrified me, because the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was why he needed it. That Friday, I was reviewing David's expense history when Tommy's daycare teacher found me. Her face was pale. Ms. Whitmore, Tommy has a fever? 103. You need to take him to the doctor. The world tilted. Fever, like the cough that had started this whole thing, like the nights I'd counted his breaths and prayed for morning. I grabbed my son from the nursery. His small body was burning. Too hot. Dangerously hot. I need to leave, I told Maggie, already moving toward the elevator. Go. I'll tell Rob. The hospital was 45 minutes away in traffic. Tommy whimpered against my chest. Too hot. Too quiet. The Uber driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror, concerned. He okay? I don't know, I whispered. I don't know. At the ER, they took him immediately. Pediatric wing, IV fluids, tests. The doctor was young, competent, kind. Pneumonia, she said. We caught it early, but he needs antibiotics, 48 hours of IV treatment, then oral meds for 10 days. How much? The question slipped out automatically. Do you have insurance? Through my job, new job, I think it's active. We'll figure it out. Right now, let's focus on getting Tommy better. They admitted him, set him up in a pediatric room with cartoon animals on the walls. I sat beside his bed, holding his small hand, watching monitors beep and flash. My phone buzzed. Rob. Maggie told me. Which hospital? I told him. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You don't have to. Claire, I'm coming. He arrived in 15, still in his suit, slightly rumpled. He brought coffee and a stuffed elephant from the gift shop. For Tommy. When he wakes up, thank you. I took the elephant, set it on the bedside table. I'm sorry. I know I need to finish that project. Stop. He sat in the chair next to mine. The project waits. Tommy doesn't. We sat in silence, watched my son sleep, his small chest rising and falling under thin hospital blankets. I almost lost him once, I said quietly. When he was 3 months old, same thing, pneumonia. I couldn't afford the antibiotics the first time the doctor prescribed them. By the time I'd scraped together the money, it had gotten worse. He was in the ICU for 3 days. Claire, I'm not telling you for sympathy. I'm telling you so you understand. I can't fail him again. Can't let pride or work or anything else come between me and making sure he's okay. If that means I'm not the right fit for this job. You're exactly the right fit, Rob interrupted. Because you understand what matters. Most people in that building, they'll work 80 hours a week chasing bonuses. But you'd walk away from everything if it meant Tommy was safe. That's not weakness. That's clarity. Tommy stirred, opened his eyes, saw Rob sitting there with his elephant. Robbie, he said. The words slurred with fever and sleep. Rob's face did something complicated. Hey, buddy. Brought you a friend. He handed Tommy the elephant. My son clutched it, already falling back asleep. He knows your name, I said. He hears you talk about work, about me. Rob's voice was rough. My daughter's name was Emma. I never got to hear her say my name. Understanding crashed over me. This wasn't about charity. This was about grief, about a man trying to save someone since he couldn't save his own child. Rob, don't. He stood abruptly. I need to go, but I'll have my driver available if you need anything. And Claire, don't worry about work. Family first, always. He left before I could respond, left me sitting in a hospital room, holding my son's hand, wondering how a wrong number had led me here to a billionaire who understood loss better than hope, and to a job that might cost me more than poverty ever had. Because somewhere in Harrison Technologies' pristine offices, David Sterling was hiding something, and when people hide things that well, they're usually willing to do terrible things to keep them hidden. Tommy slept. I sat vigil. And outside the hospital windows, Chicago glittered with 10,000 lights, each one hiding its own secrets. Tommy recovered. 3 days in the hospital. Then home with antibiotics and instructions to rest. But those 3 days cost me something I hadn't anticipated. I'd fallen behind on the David Sterling investigation. By the time I returned to work, my 72-hour deadline had stretched to 9 days. Rob didn't mention it. Just asked how Tommy was. Told me to take my time, and went back to whatever billionaires do when they're pretending everything is fine. But everything wasn't fine. I could feel it in the way David Sterling looked at me in the hallway, a look that lasted half a second too long. In the way finance department employees suddenly found reasons to walk past my desk. In the encrypted email I'd received from an unknown sender, "Stop looking where you don't belong." I should have been scared, should have taken the warning and backed off. But I'd spent too many years being told what I couldn't do, where I didn't belong, what I wasn't qualified for. Some stranger's threat wasn't going to stop me now. I worked nights, after Tommy fell asleep in the nursery, after the cleaning crew left, after the building went quiet except for the hum of servers and my own breathing. I traced payments through shell corporations, followed digital breadcrumbs through offshore accounts, connected dots that David Sterling had spent months ensuring would never be connected. The pattern was brilliant in its simplicity. Small payments, always under audit thresholds, routed through multiple vendors that all traced back to the same Delaware LLC Trinox Solutions. The money didn't stay there. It moved again within 48 hours, split into smaller amounts, deposited into accounts across 3 different states. But there was something else, something that made my stomach turn. I found medical bills, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, all in the name of Mercy Sterling, age 12, diagnosis acute lymphoblastic leukemia. David Sterling's daughter was dying. I sat back in my chair, the weight of that discovery pressing against my chest. This wasn't greed. This was desperation. A father stealing to save his child's life. I understood that desperation. Hadn't I been ready to give Tommy up for adoption when I couldn't afford formula? Hadn't I stood in that trailer, writing in a diary that maybe my son deserved better than me? The difference was, I'd texted a wrong number. David Sterling had embezzled nearly $400,000 over 18 months, because that's what I'd found when I dug deeper, not 89,000, 400,000. And it still wasn't enough. The experimental treatment Mercy needed cost $780,000. Harrison Technologies insurance had denied the claim twice. Not medically necessary. Experimental treatment not covered under current policy. I had proof now. Documents, transfer records, everything Rob would need to prosecute. Everything that would send David Sterling to prison and leave his daughter to die without her father. My phone buzzed. 2:47 a.m. Rob, you're working late. How did you know I was here? Building security alerts me when anyone's in the office after midnight. I wasn't expecting it to be you. I found something. Can you come in? Now, please. He arrived 20 minutes later, hair disheveled, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit. It made him look younger, more human. I showed him everything. The shell companies, the transfers, the medical bills. Watched his face go through the same journey mine had: anger, then understanding, then something that looked like pain. His daughter, Rob said quietly. She's 12. Leukemia. The insurance denied her experimental treatment. He's been stealing to pay for it. That doesn't make it right. I know. But it makes it understandable. Rob leaned back, ran his hands through his hair. You know what the worst part is? I could have approved that treatment. I could have overridden the insurance decision. If he'd just asked, would you have? The question hung between us. Rob looked at Sarah's photo on his desk. I don't know, he admitted. 2 years ago? Probably not. Insurance decisions are made by algorithms. If we override every denial, the system breaks down. That's what my board would say, what I would have said. And now I've spent 3 years wishing I could trade every dollar I have for 5 more minutes with Sarah and Emma. Now I understand what it's like to be desperate. Now I think maybe some things matter more than systems and algorithms and profit margins. He stood, walked to the window. Chicago was mostly dark now. Just a few lights scattered like stars. What do I do? Claire. If I report this, David goes to prison. His daughter loses her father and probably dies without the treatment. If I don't report it, I'm covering up embezzlement. I'm telling every other employee that rules don't matter if you have a sad enough story. I'd been thinking about this for hours, had played out every scenario, every consequence. There's a third option. I'm listening. We confront him, tell him we know, give him a choice, turn himself in, or we do it for him. But we also approve Mercy's treatment. Personally fund it if we have to. Save his daughter while holding him accountable. That's not justice. No, it's mercy, which is what his daughter's named after. I met his eyes. You asked me what makes people like David different from people like me. I've thought about it. When I was 16, I stole $12,000 for my mother's treatment. I got caught. They let me off because I was a minor. But what if I'd been older? What if I'd stolen more? Would I be a criminal then? Or just a daughter trying to save her mother? It's not the same. It's exactly the same. The only difference is scale and luck. I texted a wrong number and found you. David didn't have that luck. He had to make his own miracle. And yes, he broke the law. Yes, he needs to face consequences. But his daughter doesn't deserve to die because her father made desperate choices. Rob was quiet for a long time. Finally, you're asking me to be complicit in embezzlement. I'm asking you to be human. And if the board finds out, if other employees find out I covered this up, then you tell them the truth, that you chose mercy over policy, that you saved a child's life. If they fire you for that, then maybe you're working for the wrong people anyway. He laughed a bitter sound. You've been here 3 weeks and you're already telling me how to run my company. You hired me to see what others miss. I'm seeing it. What you do with it is up to you. Rob pulled out his phone, made a call. David? Rob Harrison? I need you in my office now. I don't care that it's 3 a.m. You have 30 minutes. He hung up, looked at me. Stay. I want you here
when we do this. Are you sure? You found it. You understand it. You should be here when we end it. 28 minutes later, the elevator dinged. David Sterling stepped out, dressed hastily, face pale. He saw me sitting in Rob's office, and his expression went from confused to terrified. "What's this about?" Rob gestured to the chair. "Sit." David sat. His hands were shaking. "Trinox Solutions," Rob said. "Want to tell me about it?" The color drained from David's face completely. "I can explain." "Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've embezzled $400,000 from my company over 18 months. That's a felony. Multiple felonies." "Mercy." David's voice broke. "My daughter has leukemia, needs experimental treatment. Insurance denied it twice." Rob's voice was cold, professional. Nothing like the man who'd brought Tommy an elephant at the hospital. "I know all of it, David. Claire found everything." David looked at me with something like hatred. "You, the charity case, you couldn't just be grateful for your handout. You had to go digging." "That's enough," Rob said sharply. "Claire was doing her job. You were committing fraud. Don't confuse the two. My daughter is dying." David's composure shattered. "She's 12 years old and she's dying, and your company told me her life wasn't worth the cost of treatment. What was I supposed to do? Watch her die? Accept that some algorithm decided she's not cost-effective? You were supposed to come to me. Would you have helped honestly?" Rob hesitated. That hesitation told David everything. "That's what I thought." David stood. "So, arrest me. Call the police. Send me to prison. But know that when you do, you're killing my daughter. Because the only way she gets that treatment is if I finish paying for it. And I can't do that from a cell." "Sit down," Rob said quietly. "I'm done sitting." "David, sit down." Something in Rob's voice made David comply. They stared at each other across the desk. Two men who'd worked together for 2 years, who'd built a finance division from the ground up, who'd never really known each other at all. "I'm not calling the police," Rob said. "Not yet." "Then what?" "I'm approving Mercy's treatment, effective immediately. Full cost. No questions asked." David's mouth opened, closed. "What?" "Your daughter's treatment is approved. I'll personally fund it if insurance won't. She gets the care she needs. All of it." "Why would you?" "Because Claire's right. Mercy doesn't deserve to die because of choices you made, even if those choices were crimes." Rob leaned forward. "But here's what happens next. You return every dollar you stole. I don't care how. Sell your house. Liquidate your retirement. I want every penny back in company accounts within 90 days. I'll need longer. 90 days. And you resign, effective today. I won't file charges, but you don't get to keep working here. You don't get to pretend this didn't happen. And if I refuse, then I call the FBI right now. Agent Patricia Morrison has been waiting for me to give her the word. Your choice. David, save your daughter and lose your career, or roll the dice with a jury." David's hands were shaking so badly he had to clench them into fists. "Why are you doing this?" "Because 3 years ago, I watched my wife and daughter die. I would have burned down every building I owned to save them. I understand desperate.
I just wish you'd trusted me enough to ask for help before you became a criminal." Silence stretched between them. Finally, David nodded. "Okay. I'll resign. I'll pay it back. Just please, save Mercy."
"Already done. Maggie will handle the paperwork tomorrow. Treatment starts Monday." Rob stood. "Now get out of my office. And David, if you ever steal from me again, I won't be merciful twice."
David left without another word. The elevator doors closed behind him. I sat in the chair, hands trembling, wondering if we'd just done the right thing or made a terrible mistake. "Did I do the right thing?" Rob asked quietly. "I don't know. But you did the human thing. Sometimes that's all we can do." He looked at Sarah's photo. "She would have liked you. Sarah, she always said the measure of a person isn't what they do when they have everything. It's what they do when they have to choose between being right and being kind. And what did you choose? I chose to let a little girl keep her father, even if he's a criminal, even if it means my board might fire me when they find out, because I've been the man who lost everything. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even David Sterling." Outside the windows, dawn was beginning to break over Chicago. A new day, new choices, new consequences we'd both have to live with. I just hoped Mercy Sterling would live to see them too. David Sterling resigned the following Monday. The official story was pursuing other opportunities. Nobody believed it, but nobody questioned it either. Corporate America runs on polite fictions. What nobody knew except Rob, Maggie, and me was that 3 days after David's resignation, someone broke into my apartment. I came home from work to find the door ajar. Not broken, just unlocked, like someone with a key had let themselves in. Tommy was still at the office nursery. Thank God. I stood in the hallway, phone in hand, debating whether to call the police or Rob or just run. I chose run. Called Rob from the street. Someone was in my apartment. "Are you safe?" "I'm outside. Tommy's still at the office." "Stay there. I'm sending security." They arrived in 15 minutes. 2 men in suits who swept the apartment professionally, efficiently. Nothing was missing, nothing broken, just moved. My laptop had been opened. Files on my desk had been disturbed.
Someone had been looking for something. "They were searching for evidence," I told Rob when he arrived an hour later. "The files on David." "Which you encrypted?" "Yes. But they don't know that." Rob looked around my small apartment, the bargain furniture, the second-hand everything, the life I'd built with almost nothing. "You can't stay here." "I can't afford anywhere else. Not yet. There's a corporate apartment we keep for visiting executives. It's empty. You and Tommy stay there until we figure this out." "Rob, this isn't negotiable. Claire, someone broke into your home, whether it was David or someone he hired or someone else entirely. You're not safe here." He was right. I hated that he was right. Hated that once again I needed help I couldn't provide for myself. But Tommy's safety mattered more than my pride. We moved that night. The corporate apartment was on the 40th floor of a building with actual security. 2 bedrooms. A view that made my stomach drop. Furniture that probably cost more than my entire trailer. Tommy loved it immediately, ran from room to room, laughing, Big house, mama, big. It's just temporary, baby. But even as I said it, I wondered, would anything ever be permanent again? Or would I spend my life moving from one borrowed space to another, forever dependent on Robert Harrison's charity? The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under the apartment door. Inside a burner phone and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. Stop investigating. Last warning. Next time we target what matters most. The threat was clear. Tommy. I called Rob immediately. He came to the apartment, studied the note, his face going hard in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm calling the FBI. What will you tell them? That someone left a vague threat. They won't do anything. Then I'm hiring private security. Rob, I can't. Can't what except help Claire. Someone just threatened your son. This isn't about pride anymore. He was right. I knew he was right. But accepting help felt like admitting I couldn't protect Tommy on my own. Like admitting I'd failed the one job that mattered most. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Agent Patricia Morrison arrived that afternoon. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who'd seen enough to be skeptical of everything. She examined the note, asked questions, took my statement with professional detachment. Do you have any idea who might have sent this? David Sterling, maybe, or someone working for him. The CFO who resigned, he embezzled $400,000. I found the evidence. He knows I have it. Morrison's expression shifted. And Mr. Harrison hasn't pressed charges. I glanced at Rob. He'd stayed silent during my statement, standing by the window like a sentry. No, Rob said. Not yet. Why not? That's complicated. Morrison studied him. Mr. Harrison, if you're covering up a crime, I'm not covering up anything. I'm choosing how to handle an internal matter. David Sterling will pay back every dollar he stole. His employment has been terminated. His daughter's medical treatment has been approved. Everyone gets what they need. Except justice. Justice is complicated when children are involved. Morrison closed her notebook. I can't investigate threats connected to a case you won't report. If you want my help, you need to file charges against Sterling. And his daughter dies without her father. Is that justice? That's not my call to make, but it's yours. She handed Rob her card. When you're ready to do this properly, call me. Until then, there's not much I can do except document the threat. She left. The apartment felt colder after she'd gone. I should have just reported him, Rob said quietly. From the beginning, this is my fault. You were trying to do the right thing. And now Tommy's in danger because I chose mercy over law. We don't know that David sent that note. Who else? I didn't have an answer. We sat in silence, both of us staring at that note like it might reveal its secrets if we looked hard enough. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Rob said. I answered anyway. Hello. Breathing, heavy, deliberate. Then a voice distorted, clearly using some kind of modifier. You should have listened. Click. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Rob took it from me, checked the number.
Burner? Untraceable. They're watching us. They know you're here. They know we went to the FBI. Then we need better security. And we need to figure out who's behind this. He pulled out his own phone. I'm calling someone I trust, former military. He does private security for executives. How much will that cost? I don't care. Rob, Claire. He turned to face me fully. Someone threatened your son.
Someone broke into your home. I don't care what it costs to keep you both safe. Money is the one thing I have too much of. Let me use it for something that matters. The security arrived that evening. A man named Marcus Chen, no relation to Maggie. He assured us, former Marine. Quiet competence radiating from every movement. He swept the apartment, installed additional locks, set up a monitoring system. You're safe here, he said. But I'd recommend not going anywhere alone, not until we identify the threat. I have to go to work. Then I go with you. For the next week, Marcus Chen became my shadow. He drove Tommy and me to the office, sat outside my workspace, walked us to the nursery and back. Tommy thought he was wonderful, called him Mars Man, and demanded piggyback rides. The other employees noticed. Of course they noticed. The whispers that had started to die down came roaring back. Why does she need security? Must have pissed someone off. Probably her baby daddy causing trouble. I ignored them. Had bigger problems than gossip. Because on Friday, exactly 1 week after the break-in, I received an email from David Sterling. Subject line, I'm sorry. I almost deleted it. Almost. But something made me open it. Claire, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for your understanding, but I need you to know I didn't send those threats. I didn't break into your apartment. I would never put a child in danger, not after everything with Mercy. I've paid back $147,000 so far, sold my car, my wife's jewelry. We're selling the house. I'll have the rest within 90 days like Rob demanded. But someone else knows what I did. Someone who's using it against both of us. I think it's Richard Thornton, board member. He's been asking questions about my resignation, about you, about why Rob hasn't pressed charges. Be careful, Claire. Thornton's dangerous in ways I never was. I stole money. He steals lives. David. I forwarded the email to Rob immediately. He read it, his face darkening with each line. Richard Thornton. You know him. He's been on the board for 15 years. Old money, connected. He's pushed back against every reform I've tried to implement, argued against employee health care improvements, against raising minimum wage for our service staff. He sees the company as a cash machine, not a community. Could he be embezzling too? If he is, he's better at hiding it than David was. Rob stood, paced. I need to look into this. Quietly. If David's right and Thornton knows about the embezzlement, he could use it to force me out. Create a scandal, take control of the company. Why would he threaten me, though? Because you're the one who found the evidence. You're the loose end. If something happens to you, if you're discredited or scared into silence, the evidence becomes less credible. The implication hung between us. Richard Thornton wasn't just threatening me. He was threatening Tommy, to silence me, to protect whatever scheme he was running. We need Morrison, I said. We need the FBI. And tell them what? That a board member might be involved in something we can't prove, that David Sterling, who we let resign instead of prosecuting, sent us an email accusing someone else? So what do? Rob looked at me with something that might have been respect or might have been fear. We do what you do best. We investigate. We find proof. And then we burn Thornton's world down before he can burn ours. That night, after Tommy fell asleep, I sat at my laptop and began digging. Not into David Sterling's accounts this time, into Richard Thornton's. What I found made David's embezzlement look like pocket change. Over 15 years. Richard Thornton had siphoned $18 million from Harrison Technologies. Not through direct theft, that would be too obvious, through inflated vendor contracts, phantom consultants, and shell corporations that existed only to transfer money from the company to his personal accounts. David had stolen to save his daughter. Thornton had stolen because he was greedy. But the worst part, the part that made my blood run cold, one of Thornton's shell companies owned the building where my apartment was. The one that had been broken into. He'd had access the whole time. Had probably had someone watching me since the day I started working at Harrison Technologies. And if he'd been watching me, he'd been watching Tommy too. I called Rob at 3 a.m., didn't care that it was late. Thornton owns my building, the one we moved from. He's been watching us this whole time. Silence. Then, pack a bag. You and Tommy. Now. Marcus will drive you somewhere safe. Where? My house. The penthouse. It's the most secure location I own. You stay there until we end this. Rob, I can't. Claire, please. For once, just let me help without arguing. So I packed. Woke Tommy from sleep, followed Marcus Chen out of the corporate apartment and into an armored car that felt like something from a movie. We drove through empty Chicago streets to a building that made the corporate apartment look modest. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city. Rooms I didn't explore because I was too tired, too scared, too overwhelmed. Rob met us at the door, still dressed. Clearly hadn't slept. "You're safe here," he said. "I promise." I wanted to believe him, but safe was a luxury I'd learned not to trust. Tommy, oblivious to the danger, pointed at the windows. "Stars. Mama see stars?" "Yes, baby. We can see the stars." Rob crouched down to Tommy's level. "Hey, buddy, want to see something cool?" Tommy nodded enthusiastically. Rob led us to a room I hadn't noticed. Opened the door. Inside was the nursery. Sarah's nursery. Emma's nursery. The room where all this had started, in a way. "Tommy can sleep here," Rob said quietly. "If that's okay." I looked at the crib that had never been used, the mobile that had never spun above a sleeping child, the room that had been a monument to loss for 3 years. "Are you sure?" "Someone should use it. Someone should be happy in this room." He picked Tommy up, set him in the crib. My son curled up immediately, exhausted from the move. We stood there watching him sleep. 2 broken people trying to protect a child in a world that felt increasingly dangerous. "We're going to stop Thornton," Rob said. "Whatever it takes. Even if it means losing the company." "The company doesn't matter."
Not compared to this. Not compared to keeping you and Tommy safe. He meant it. I could hear the conviction in his voice. And that's when I realized this wasn't about charity anymore. Wasn't about a billionaire helping a poor single mother.
This was about two people who'd both lost everything learning to build something new from the wreckage. And if Richard Thornton thought he could take that away, he had no idea who he was dealing with. Sometimes the deepest loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about wondering if anyone would truly show up when you need them most. Claire's story reminds us that life's most profound connections often begin in our darkest moments, when pride falls away and we're brave enough to ask for help. We've all been there counting dollars, measuring worth, wondering if we matter to anyone beyond obligation. Rob found purpose again not by saving Claire, but by letting her save him back. David discovered that stealing for love still breaks you, but mercy can rebuild what judgment destroys. This isn't just a story about poverty and wealth. It's about the family we choose when blood fails us. About Margaret finding grandmotherhood in a penthouse. About little Tommy calling a broken billionaire Robbie and healing wounds no money could touch. It's about recognizing that the person checking your grocery receipt might be one missed paycheck from where Claire stood. That the executive in the elevator might be as hollow as Rob once was. We're all just one wrong number away from the connection that changes everything. When was the last time you asked for help when you really needed it? Have you ever helped someone and found they were actually helping you? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is admit we're not alone in this struggle.